Are you in a band with a new album coming out? Are you an artist wanting more people to check out your work? Is there an event you want to promote? Do you own or run a company that sells a cool product or service? In Defense of Ska gets over 10,000 unique downloads each month. If you're interested in advertising on the podcast, we offer very reasonable rates and can help with the production of the ad. The ads are dynamic, meaning they will be placed on every episode for a given period of time. If you're interested, direct message us or email us at indefenseofska@gmail.com.
Minus the Bear formed in Seattle in 2001. Their 2005 record, Menes El Oso, was a landmark indie rock record. They got even bigger as the decade progressed. It was a moment in time where indie rock bands gained substantial audiences. MGMT, Animal Collective, Vampire Weekend. Minus the Bear, like many of these bands, pulled from a variety of influences. In their case, math rock, prog rock, a little bit of emo and pop, but also buried in the bass lines was ska and reggae influences. Before moving to Seattle, bassist Cory Murchy was a huge ska fan and went to many shows in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Today, he tells us about his love for ska and how he snuck as much of it into Minus the Bear songs as he possibly could.
How much did you listen to Minus the Bear back in the day?
I listen to them now and again.
Yeah. I think I mostly just knew of them peripherally through bands like Taramelos. And then I would always mix them up with These Arms Are Snakes.
They were a really big band. I think they kind of came right at that peak when indie rock sort of was its biggest.
Yeah.
Like that sort of mid to late 2000s, I think indie rock kind of had its biggest moment, if you will, in the mainstream. And they were one of those bands.
Mm-hmm. Kind of mathy, kind of technical.
Yeah.
Kind of chill, but you could tell that they were from, aggressive roots. And we found out ska roots.
And they're in the music.
They're in the music.
Yeah. Cory plays bass and he injects a little bit of ska, a little bit of reggae into those bass lines.
So what we're saying is Minus the Bear is now a ska band. We claim them.
We claim them. And if you're listening to this and you're a Minus the Bear fan, you are now a ska fan.
And if you're in Minus the Bear and you're not Cory, guess what? You're in a ska band.
Thank you for wanting to talk. I love ska. It sounds like you guys do too.
Yeah, it's all right.
A little bit.
I want to start with you sent or you posted a photo of yourself. I think you're in high school, and you're sitting down. You got it looks like a beer maybe, and you got your jacket on, your cool jacket, boots. There's specials. There's two specials patches. One's got like a ghost town thing going on. One's more of just generic specials. There's a selector patch. On your other arm, I can see some checkers, but I can't really tell what it is. Let's discuss the photo.
Yeah, the photo. So that was probably taken in, I'd say around 1994 or 5-ish, probably 94. It was downtown Santa Fe at the rail yard, which was at the time just a dusty, just a rail yard that wasn't anything. And yeah, that checkered patch that you're talking about was it was one of those classic checkerboard, and it just said ska.
Nice.
And that was definitely the first ska patch that I ever bought, and which I'm actually kind of bummed because it's the one patch that I don't have. I've held on to everything, and that for some reason is missing in my collection. So I've got to hunt one down.
Do you know where you found the ska patch in 94?
I do. I probably found it in 92 or 93 down on the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica, because I used to live in Los Angeles. And I think on a trip down to to Nana's, which was where you could get Doc Martens at the time. It was either Nana's or you had to, mail order Doc Martens. And so, I remember going down, picking up some Doc Martens, and then going into probably a record shop and seeing it on the wall or whatever, and being like, I gotta have that, because I was just starting to I don't know if you want to start here, but I had just seen Mealticket. I think they were from the Valley, and they blew my mind because it was like nothing I'd ever seen before or experienced. And so that was was the spark. And yeah, I remember going in and being like, oh, Mealticket, there's ska. I like ska. I'm going to get that patch instead of like the Morbid Angel patch that everyone else was getting, because that was not my thing. So
if you would have told me that photo was taken in the early 80s, I would have believed it. Like it's got like it's black and white, but like you got the old look. That's my first observation. My second one is, you look like a troublemaker. Were you a troublemaker?
I had my moments of troublemaking. One of my best friends growing up, Nick Parnell, took that photo of me. We were down on the train tracks, and he's a photographer, and he took that picture of me. I still remember it. And yeah, I mean, I think if you said that it looked like the 80s, then that's a big compliment. I was doing something right. Because I definitely, I loved that, late 70s, early 80s, the two-tone scene. I mean, that was huge for me.
So you got Mealticket kind of was the first, that was the intro, but eventually you discovered two-tone, and that sort of became your thing.
Yeah. So I saw that Mealticket show and completely blew my mind with just like how much power the band possessed with all that brass, right? Mm-hmm. Like it was something that I'd never actually seen. I'd always just seen guitars and drums and that was it. So with that addition to the brass, it was just like, holy crap, this is so powerful. And like, everyone was dancing, and like it was like this weird amalgamation of moshing but skanking, and it was like, yeah, it was super positive, right? It was like everyone was having a good time, and if someone fell over while they're skanking, someone picked them up. It was true punk rock in that sense. So it really made an impression on me. And then cut to probably a few months later, I had a family friend gift me this incredible gift of all of his old vinyl. And he was an old punk rocker, new wave kid in the late 70s, early 80s in Los Angeles. So he had this collection of like, the Specials, The Beat, Fishbone, some like K-Rock compilations, bunch of Black Flag, Adolescence, like kind of the whole thing, and one of the records that he gave me was the Specials Ghost Town 12-inch. And I remember, kind of putting the two and two together, that the Specials were kind of part of this, whatever the ska thing was, and I remember putting that record on, and like, I didn't understand it at all. Right. Cause like Ghost Town, that 12-inch, like those three songs, they're not like your traditional, two-tone ska that you think of, Rat Race, Message to You, Rudy. It was like something different, but it made an impression. It was just like, okay, I'm in. And that was really kind of the catalyst that broke open the dam. And that Beat record too, Just Can't Stop It, or
yeah, I think
it was like those two, like they just like made the biggest impression on me. So that was kind of like, as far as actually listening to ska, those were the two records that really spoke to me.
So when did you move back to Santa Fe? Are you from Santa Fe originally, or?
Yeah, kind of a bunch of hopping around between Seattle, Santa Fe, LA, but yeah, so I was in the Valley for a while, and that was where I, was made aware of ska. and then moved to Santa Fe, and from junior high basically to till I moved back to Seattle once I graduated.
Was there anything happening ska wise in Santa Fe during that period?
There wasn't really. There were a couple kids that knew about it, but Santa Fe is still a pretty small town. There was like a ska band or two in Albuquerque, like Giant Steps. They were like the big ska band from Albuquerque. But it was like this cool, like nobody knew about it. And I was into it. My buddy Nick was into it. My buddy Scott, there was like 5 of us that liked it. And it was like this special thing that we had. There was a decent like punk rock and hardcore scene, which we were definitely involved with, but like we were definitely the scooter boy, rude boy, skinhead contingent, like when I moved to Santa Fe, I had shaved head, flight, boots, the whole thing. And my best friend, Scott, he like followed me around for a while because he was like, okay, he's got some ska patches, but like he's a skinhead. Is he a Nazi skinhead? Is he like a traditional skin? Like, what is this deal? And like the first thing he said to me was like, oh, I've got a Vespa. I don't know if you're into those. And I was like, whoa, you've got a Vespa? Like, I want one so bad. And from then on, like we were inseparable. So yeah, he thought I was a Nazi. I wasn't a Nazi, never was a Nazi. I was the ska kid,
I'm glad we were able to set that straight right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to say.
Yeah, my old band never played Santa Fe, but we did play Albuquerque every tour.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the shows being good there. We always played a place called Time Out.
Yep. I remember Time Out very well. Yeah. We used to go and sneak down to shows and like sneak in the back, do the classic, like help the band pull in their gear, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. We'd always go down.
There was a local band we played with once or twice, and I cannot for the life of me remember their name. So I have such a weird detail that I remember, but the only detail I remember about this band is that they had a song called Porn Star.
I wonder if that was 3-Ball Combo.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah, so a bunch of them were from Santa Fe, actually. So like when I started a ska band called the Soulskats, because I was like totally into two-tone and like by then like totally into the traditional scene, and they were like more of like the ska core, aspect. So yeah, nice folks though.
So when did you start your band?
I started that probably 95.
Okay.
Probably 95. I enlisted, like not many people like ska in Santa Fe, but a lot of people loved reggae, there were a lot of hippies that really, really loved the reggae. So I enlisted a couple hippies to play guitar and trumpet. And, yeah, it was like, we tried to like, my whole vision was like, yeah, two-tone traditional ska. Like I didn't want to do the ska core thing. It was more about like, early Wailers and specials and, that type of thing. So
I assume you played bass in the band?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. Was that your first time? Was that your first band playing bass?
I think, first band that like we really like played shows and that was like kind of the first real band for sure.
How much did this band play?
We did. We played quite a bit for being a high school band. We played a bunch of Santa Fe, there was growing up, there was a DIY, like all ages club and warehouse place that we all, basically lived at.
What was it called?
Warehouse 21.
Okay.
Warehouse 21. And so we played, a bunch of shows there. We played, we played downtown on the plaza a couple times. We opened up the first skate park in Santa Fe. And then we also played in Albuquerque a bunch. We got, we played some, a bunch of shows with, I think I mentioned Giant Steps. They were an Albuquerque ska band that was doing a bunch of stuff. Went up to Colorado a couple times. And we just pretty much any excuse for us to play, we would do it. And it was tough too, because it was, it was bass, guitar, drums, and then a 3-piece horn section, and then a female vocalist and a male vocalist. And then my buddy Nick every once in a while would come in and toast. So it was like the whole thing, man. Yeah.
Adam, what are your New Mexico touring like memories? Where did you play?
Launchpad in Albuquerque. That's the place that I remember playing.
Yep.
And I actually was just watching Better Call Saul, and they mentioned the Launchpad in one of the episodes. Definitely.
I remember Launchpad. They have they're one of those venues that like sometimes has a roof, but sometimes doesn't.
Yeah.
So like in the summertime, if I couldn't sneak into the show, like through the back or whatever, I would climb the roof.
Wow.
And then like look down, and depending on what the scene was, like jump in or or just watch from the roof. But there were a couple times I would jump in. It was great.
Just like stage dive from the roof?
No, like there was like a second level up there that like you could like jump down from the roof.
Oh, okay.
And like all of a sudden you were at the show.
Nice.
Did your band open for any bands of note?
Not really. I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean of note, but I mean like that Arizona band Congo Shock, we'd open for them. Who was it? Like Giant Steps, mostly like, local regional bands, nothing too huge.
When you would play the all ages space in Santa Fe, what kind would there be much of a turnout?
Oh yeah. It was, like for a while, like there were a bunch of people that would show up. I mean, the shows were always great. We kind of built up a following, and, it was a lot of friends or whatever, but like, yeah, people would come out. It was fun.
Warehouse 21 as a name for an all ages space is a terrible name.
Oh yeah. It was an amazing spot though. I mean, I have to say, like, it really fostered a lot of really cool things, and like kept a lot of us out of a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And it was like it was pretty amazing, actually.
What did it look like inside?
Well, when I was growing up, it was just like a fucking tin shack in the rail yard, like in a dusty lot. And then as soon as I moved, they like expanded and like built a brand new spot. But I mean, it was a shack in a dirt lot in the rail yard, basically. And we just like made it our home.
Was it graffitied up or?
Yep. Totally.
Nice. Did you ever write anything on the walls?
Oh, all the time, man. Yeah.
What'd you write? What was your?
Come on, Joker. Like, I don't know, all sorts of shit.
Hell yeah.
Ska rules.
Ska rules.
Fucking kick it. Have you kicked a hippie today? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it definitely was like an art, fostered a lot of artists and music, and really taught me how to, we booked shows. I remember do you remember, I don't know if you guys remember Blind Spot?
Yeah. They were from Petaluma.
I auditioned to play drums for them after I quit Flat Planet, and I did not make it.
Jerks.
Now, see, in their defense though, their original drummer was like a total shredder, and then I think they had a really high bar. So I think after they auditioned me and I wasn't good enough, they probably went through several more and then probably realized that they had to lower the bar.
Like, I wish I would have gone with Aaron.
I know.
Yeah, I remember, booking them, and so cut my teeth on promoting and kind of getting into that world.
Okay, I want to move forward to a 2007 interview you did with AV Club. So I think what they did was they grabbed your iPod and shuffled through it, then asked you questions about songs.
Okay. Yep.
So the first song is Tommy McCook and the Aggravators.
Yeah, man.
Okay, A Giant Dub.
Yep.
Great song, by the way.
Oh yeah.
So you're talking in that interview. So this is 2007 that you own a 30 disc set Trojan record collection,
Yeah.
and that on tour you mostly listen to reggae and crust punk. That was your
Yeah.
contribution to van music.
Yeah.
What were you playing in the van specifically at that time?
Specifically, man. I mean, honestly, I probably did play the crap out of those Trojan discs. If I was at 30 then, I'm probably at about 130 now. I've definitely upped my collection. So a lot of that. What would? Oh, yeah. I mean, I musically, I really am kind of all over the place. So it would go from Tommy McCook to the Cardigans to Nausea to Tom Waits. So it kind of goes all over the place as far as my musical radar.
What's your crust punk bands?
Oh, Nausea.
Yeah, I would say Nausea was a big one at that point. And then I mean, I loved old hardcore bands. A lot of hardcore bands came out of Santa Fe too, like Logical Nonsense, Grimple. I mean, they're not quite crust, but Neurosis. I was super into Neurosis. So Dead Guy. Well, I guess that's hardcore, but yeah, that's kind of where it was at.
A fine line between all of those.
Yeah, exactly. Just depending on what record and how many drugs they were doing at the time.
Now, was Minus the Bear like a full album listened to in the van sort of band, or would you guys jump around?
Yeah, we would listen to full albums. We jumped around a little bit, and it kind of depending on where we were as far as our, era. Like we listened to a lot of like booty rap, Cash Money Millionaires.
Yeah.
And then, all the kind of poppy like Nelly and, all the Pharrell produced stuff. So a lot of that stuff, we got into, a big prog rock moment there. So there was a lot of Yes and King Crimson and stuff like that.
Is there any one album that you guys can't listen to anymore? Like that's been so played out from touring and listening to it that like anytime it gets brought up, everybody's just like, ugh, no.
I mean, that's kind of tough to say. It's been a few years since we've been on tour.
Oh, sure. But I feel like that burnout stays.
Right. I'm not really thinking of anything.
All right.
In particular. I know what you're saying, but I can't think of anything at the moment.
Yeah.
Were they down with your Trojan Records stuff?
In various degrees. Yeah. The reggae ska thing did not go over so hot with those guys. That was not like when I was driving, it was like, okay, Cory's gonna drive, he's gonna play some fucking reggae and ska. And so I would gleefully turn it up, obviously.
Of course.
So as an adult, you've really gravitated towards the older stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Do you want to name like some particular favorites, be it like artists or songs, records?
I mean, Toots was a big one and still is. That early Wailers stuff is incredible. Of course, the Scotalites, all the classics. I did, there is a lot of, third wave stuff that I still really love too. Like the Bosstones. The Bosstones were a huge band for me. Op Ivy and stuff like that. And then, the two-tone stuff, the Specials, the Beat, Selector, love the Selector. I mean, kind of all over the place with that stuff too. And then, the older I've gotten, I think the more I've gotten into dub, pretty heavy, like Lee Perry and, a lot of the Horace Andy reggae stuff, but then, I'm blanking right now, but yeah.
But on tour, would you dare put on a Boss Tones?
Every once in a while, if I was feeling especially frisky, they could deal with Op Ivy, I think, for the most part. The Bosstones might be treading a little water, but yeah, that's all right. I mean, honestly, there was, when Minus the Bear was going on, I did kind of slow down my intake of a lot of the ska stuff, and definitely kind of lost touch with what was current for sure. And admittedly did listen to a lot of other stuff besides ska while I was in the band.
Right, but you're still going to have all that stuff from your youth on your iPod.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so sometimes on long drive, it's going to creep out.
Yep. So a lot of those like old comps, like the Club Ska CD, like that was really big because it had a bunch of different players on it or whatever, and that was always mind blowing for me. There was like maybe the Club 64 CD. I think there was that Mango record label that put out a bunch of like compilations in the early mid 90s. So yeah, I'd put some of that stuff on for sure.
I think you mentioned, I'm not sure if it was this article for a different one, but that when you were living in Seattle, you would listen to KEXP. There was a Saturday reggae show.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. What's his name? Kid Hops did a morning reggae show, and it was just fire, man. It was great. He's really, really good.
Was that more like 70s type reggae?
Yeah, for sure. Like 70s, 80s. But like, it's funny that you mentioned that, because like actually going into the studio one day, there was a bass part that I was kind of struggling with as far as like, okay, what am I going to do here? And I remember specifically he played Damian Marley's what is it? Welcome to Jamrock. That's what it was called. And it was the bass. It was a bass riff from Ini Kamu's "World Is Africa," and that bass part came on, and I was like, "That's it." And so, like, I got to the studio, like, with that in mind, and like came up with something that, like, to me resembled that, and like played off of that vibe or whatever. Excuse me. And it was a direct result of Kid Hops playing that song that morning, and me happening to hear it.
Interesting. Yeah, you told me in a message when we were setting up the interview that you wrote a lot of bass lines, either directly influenced by or even attempting to be ska reggae bass lines for Minus the Bear. And after you said that, I like re-listened to some of your stuff again with that in mind, and I was like, oh, I can hear it. Like, I didn't notice it before, but I could see it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just, like, with, growing up with that in my past, and like just my extreme love of, I mean, as a bass player, listening to reggae and ska is like a kid in a candy shop, right? Like it's that's the bass is a main focus and a main driver of Jamaican music. And for me, I just really was able to latch onto that as far as like use it as inspiration, and to be able to kind of come at things, trying to come at it less from like a traditional rock standpoint, and be like, okay, what if I tried to match this weird tappy, affected guitar with a dub bass line or a reggae bass line or a ska bass line. So it was just kind of always in my head, and that's because that's what I like to play.
Yeah, I mean, Jamaican music, the bass and the guitar are not like matching per se the way that rock music is. So it's definitely, it has an element that is really makes the song unique. Like, it does sort of sing a melody, but it's low end, so it's you feel it, you sense it. It's not necessarily hitting you over the head, but it really is affecting the song in a major way.
Yep. And my thought was, and kind of approach to playing bass was like, I always wanted you to feel it like kind of in your navel, right? Like I wanted to hit you where you could feel it. And so when I would go to the studio, my thing was just like, I just want it to be low and deep. So yeah. And so sometimes, because of the frequencies, like sometimes that doesn't come across on every system, like stereo system and stuff. But then some, if you got the right low end, then it can kind of rumble through.
I'm going to throw a few songs at you. And you can kind of break it down a little bit, or have anything to say about the song and your bass part and stuff.
Mm.
So, and they have some connection to why I picked them, and I'll explain.
Ooh, I'm excited for this one. Yeah.
Okay, first one, My Time, popular song. I chose this because a ska band called Young Costello covered it and turned it into ska.
Wait, they turned that song into a ska song?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, dude. What are they called?
Young Costello. They're a smaller band from Texas.
Wow.
It has, it feels intuitive. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was why I was thinking about. I wonder what your approach to the song was.
Yeah, I think that always kind of. I'm super excited to check that song out now. By the way, I think probably in the moment I was probably more thinking like more of like a hip hop thing, but like the dub bit like totally makes sense. And that is awesome.
Interesting. So that song was kind of that was one of your bigger songs, right? From that era?
It was kind of the first single off of a record that we did with a new record label that kind of had a little bit of a push. So we definitely kind of pushed that song. And it's a weird, it's kind of one of those weird outlier songs that it doesn't sound like anything on the rest of the album or whatever. So which we kind of did from time to time for sure.
Before we move on to the next song, tell me a little bit about the video. The video's got like a white room. You guys are in color shirts. You guys are kind of sped up a little bit, or not sped up. Anyways, it's very like striking visual.
Yeah, it was just something different. I mean, videos are always strange because it's someone coming in with an idea and they're like, "Yeah, we'll do this while the song is playing, and it'll be a video." And you're like, "Okay, cool, let's do it." And you just kind of go with it. So, yeah, I think it was fun using all those colors and the dancers. I think it was nice because sometimes the videos maybe come across a little more serious or a little more stoic sometimes, and so that one was it just felt light and fun. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So Memphis and 53rd. A journalist named Jason McNeil for AllMusic described the song as quasi ska rock, like a timid English beat.
Nice. I like that. I like that. As soon as you said that song, I was thinking, okay, two-tone. Like it's going to be that reminds me of that a little bit, just because of and the beat, the English beat. That actually, oh man, this is so nice to get some reflection from the outside world. A lot of fun to play live, and like always had a lot of energy. And yeah, I mean, I can totally see like an English beat kind of, just the way they motor through some of those riffs, like that's totally Memphis. Yeah.
Okay. So last one is Pachuca Sunrise. Yes. Okay. I'm going to read. So first I want to talk about the story behind what I read, and then you can talk about the bass line.
Okay.
Some article I found, and I think Dave was being interviewed. And the interviewer said it had a ska element, and then quoted him as saying that his girlfriend said to him, "Oh, you guys wrote a ska song." And he said to her, don't ever say that to me again.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if his girlfriend said that. I certainly said that many times and was received with absolute disgust. And I'm like, dudes, it's a ska song. Like this is like, you can skank to this. And they would get so bummed about it. Like, and I'm like, you guys, ska is awesome. It's great. Like, what are you so upset about? You know, like, just accept it. It is what it is. So I am pleased beyond anything to hear you bring this up. And frankly, if you didn't, I was going to bring up the fact that Pachuca Sunrise, in my mind, is indeed a ska song, or has the potential to be a fantastic ska song. And in fact, I'll go ahead and throw it out there. If someone wants to cover Pachuca Sunrise as a full-on ska reggae dub, I've thought about this. I know what the breakdown should be. Like, if you want me to play, let's talk. Let's make that a bona fide ska song. So I'm throwing it out there. Let's do it.
Yeah. Just tweet at what's your handle?
Cory Murchy.
Okay. Just tweet at Cory Murchy.
Yeah. Yep. Let's get the band together and let's make a Minus the Bear ska cover band, or ska cover album. Let's do it.
Oh man,
we can do a whole Minus the Bear ska cover comp.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it. I mean, we've got 3 songs. We've got an EP right there.
Yeah.
And then what was the song that you took that Damian Marley bass line and?
That was Double Vision Quest.
Boom, 4 songs.
4 songs, boom. Which really, we can round it out with 5 songs, but that is a healthy start.
Well, what would be the 5th song? Like, what's another song that like leans into the ska reggae realm, maybe with the bass line or anything around it?
I'm gonna have to think about that, but
okay.
I know that they're out there, because there's, like I said, there's a bunch of songs that I'm like, that's for me, that's a reggae or that's a ska bass line. So I'm excited.
Let's jump into the future. 2023, the Minus the Bear ska album comes out.
Yep.
Okay. How does the other members react to this?
Not well.
and in this scenario, they get no warning. It just releases one day. Pitchfork covers it and says, "Wow, look at this."
Yeah.
Who calls you first the angriest?
I think I would probably get maybe a lot of silence as my punishment. No, I'm sure I'd get some phone calls, but I would imagine that they could understand that it is actually indeed a very cool thing. So we'll see. Let's do the follow-up interview after we do the record.
Yeah.
And the tour. Yeah.
And the tour.
I mean, we got to promote it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's my optimistic. I'm going to look into the future. I'm going to see with rose-colored glasses. You're going to get a call from Dave. He's going to say, "You know what? You were right. Pachuca Sunrise is a ska song, and I like it."
I'd be so stoked. I'd be really stoked to get a call from Dave. So.
So, okay, Minus the Bear. This actually, I think, might have been in the same article. There was a lot of talk about how you guys historically have used long, ridiculous song titles, and now this was like the next layer after that. The interviewer was talking to the bands and about how much they hated being asked about the long song titles, and Aaron Tate told the interviewer that if they were asked about the long song titles, they would walk out of the interview.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why I don't mention that guy anymore. But yeah, it's kind of one of those silly things. Like, you do something and then you're mad at people talking about it, but like, it's clearly a thing that, like, it's ridiculous. So it's a point of conversation, right?
Right. People are going to notice it.
Yeah, totally. We always kind of did it just because it was like, song titles are dumb, or you don't want to call a song "I Love You" that's all about "I love you," right? But So let's make them absolutely ridiculous. And they always kind of came just from too many late nights and, inside jokes. And, but yeah, once it became like the focus of the interview, it was like, all right, guys, like, let's talk about the music. And, rightfully, like, we wanted to talk about the music, but like, we gave them this low hanging fruit to talk about. So let's just kind of, let's roll with it. Right. But yeah, I think there was definitely kind of a point in the band's career that we were like, all right, no more dumb song titles. So they were just, which, makes sense, because we were also just like kind of done with it. But it's funny. It's funny, right? Like, it's dumb. It's funny.
I mean, song titles are kind of, whatever.
Yeah.
Even some bands have like, weird song titles that they're not necessarily as ridiculous as some of yours, but like, it's not the same thing as the chorus. Like, I'm thinking of Edna's Goldfish has that song Veronica Sawyer, and the words Veronica Sawyer never are in the song whatsoever. It goes, Friday night, whatever.
Yeah.
So everyone called it that. They didn't call it Veronica Sawyer because.
Right. Yeah.
Did you guys get any of that with fans or with yourselves?
A little bit. I mean, people were really keen on the song title, so they paid attention. It's like, that was the thing. Like, they really paid attention to that. And then, in fact, it was funny because once we did kind of mellow it out and they were a little bit more benign, people would be, of course, the interviewer would be like, so I noticed your song titles aren't as funny anymore. It was always a German. I don't know why. Yeah, it's just not as funny. Is there a reason for that? And it would be like, because we didn't want to talk about it in interviews, but here we are. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But at the end of the day, people were paying attention, which is the nice thing. So,
did y'all do handwritten set lists for shows?
Yeah, for a long time we did. I think towards the end we started doing.
So then you have to abbreviate it, right?
Oh yeah, there were a lot of abbreviations for sure. Yeah, in fact, to be honest, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I know the songs based on those set lists.
Right.
It wasn't Pachuca Sunrise, it was Pachuca. It wasn't Memphis and 53rd, it was Memphis. And there were other ones that obviously were more cut down. So when I do hear some of the like, thanks for the killer game of Crisco Twister, it was just Crisco,
right?
And so it was like, when someone brings up the full title, it was like, what are you talking about? So it'd go both ways.
Yeah.
When you guys were a young band, you had an album called Bands Like It When You Yell Yar at Them.
Yeah.
And this was, for a while, this was only available at shows.
Yeah, I think it was like an EP. I think it was before Highly Refined Pirates. And so, Highly Refined Pirates, Bands Like It When You Yell Yar at Them, it kind of went with that. It was like the pirate theme.
Only having it available at the show, was that like out of convenience, or was that like to make it special? What was the thought behind it?
I think for that in particular, it was just like a pre-EP before we did the full length. And I think, I don't know, I think it was just a special thing that we had on tour in order to sell on tour, that it was just
like a demo, basically.
Merch item. Yeah. And I don't think those ever really like came out retail. I think it was, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it was just a thing that we had on tour.
I think later on you re-released it officially.
Yeah. Well, and I think with that too, like for our Japanese release, I think that was included, because the Japanese releases, a lot of times they would want like, a couple extra songs or something. And so like you would put a few extra songs on the Japanese release for the Japanese market. if I remember correctly, it had something to do with that too, or worked with that too. So,
And there was a song on there called "Big Fat Smart Bug," aren't you?
mm-hmm.
That's a delightful instrumental song of about 1 minute and 15 seconds or something.
And so that's a reference, I believe, to Starship Troopers. I believe that's a line in Starship Troopers. So there were definitely like nods to certain, movies or media that we would pick up on and kind of include. And Starship Troopers, for some reason, got a couple nods there.
I mean, that feels like a very ska punk band thing to do.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
You guys should have sampled the Goonies.
There you go. See, I was ready to embrace that. That's the thing. I'm like, come on, guys. We're already doing half of the ska work.
Right.
Okay, so from Santa Fe, you moved to Seattle. I assume, was this for college? Is that what you went to Seattle for?
No, I moved to Seattle because I didn't know what I was going to do after graduating. And I knew that I wanted to play music. That was something that I really enjoyed. And I knew that staying in Santa Fe wasn't the ticket for that. I'd played the ska band. Actually, the first recording I ever did was with my friend Aaron Turner, who runs or used to run Hydra Head he's from Sumac and ISIS. We had a project, and that was like the first physical like recording that we ever did, or I ever did. It was a project called the Holomen. And then I played with a Native American guy up in Taos. He was a recording artist, and I played with him for a little while. And so about 2 years and a half after I graduated, I was like, all right, I got to get out of town and go somewhere and give music a shot. So I picked Seattle because my parents grew up in Aberdeen, so a little logging town on the west peninsula of Washington,
where Kurt Cobain is from.
That is correct. Yeah, my mom used to babysit him.
Get out of here!
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So I picked Seattle because I didn't want to go back to LA. Like my dad was a musician and he tried kind of to make a music career in LA, and that's pretty tough when you're raising two kids. So LA was out of the picture. New York scared the crap out of me at that moment. And so Seattle it was. And so I moved up to Seattle with $80 in my pocket and gave myself 2 years to, like I set a goal of, being in a band, recording, touring, doing the band thing. And if at the end of 2 years it didn't work out, then I would figure it out. I'd look into school or look into something. And so about 1.5 years into it was when I met Dave at the Cha-Cha, which is a local bar where everyone, a lot of bands kind of hung out. And I knew that he was in Botch because, like I said, my friend Aaron Turner put out his records. And so like at the bar, I walked up to Dave and this is still when Botch was, in full swing still. And I remember I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, my name's Cory Murchy. I'm from Santa Fe. I know Aaron Turner. I just moved up here to play music. We should play some music together sometime." And he kind of laughed and, we met, but hit it off. And then finally we got into a room together with the drummer, and that was kind of how it all started.
Now, Botch had played like at least a ska song, right?
I do not think so.
Okay.
I think the only ska lover of that band was Brian Cook, who also coincidentally is the bass player. So,
but I did read an interview that Dave said that they had some ska in there. So they
might have. I think now it was something that he would try to downplay with me, but yeah, I think there was like an early iteration of Botch that might have played some ska punk. Yeah.
All right.
Oh man, I want that demo.
Yeah, we need that.
Right.
Before Minus the Bear, you played Killsadie and a band called Onala Ska.
On Alaska.
Okay.
On Alaska.
However you want to pronounce it.
Funny enough, not a ska band.
Not a ska band. It's like kind of like bar ballads, right?
Yeah, kind of bar ballads, real singer-songwriter-y. This guy, Tom Harple, who's just a wonderful songwriter, had this little band. And I played a little like keyboard, organ, and a little bass. Well, no, Brian Cook actually played bass in that too. Seattle's very incestuous with the music scene, so a lot of players playing together. But yeah, on Alaska, that was a great band.
Killsadie. So you were in Killsadie just a real brief time, right?
Yep, just kind of the tail end of their career. But funny enough, like when I met Dave and told him we should play music together, he introduced me to Aaron, who was the drummer from Killsadie and from Minus the Bear, and said, hey, or once I started hanging out with Aaron and those guys, like they were looking for a bass player. And so I just ended up kind of trying out and getting the gig. And I only did one tour with them. And then we recorded a final EP, and that was about it for my Killsadie days.
Before you joined, I don't know if like you were aware of the band before you joined or anything, but what's his name? Bruce Willett? Is that the right name, Adam?
Yeah, BJ.
BJ, yep.
BJ was in the band. BJ was from Animal Chin.
Right. Yeah.
And then the Stereo, not a ska band, but
yep, lots of ska people in that band.
And then Eric Hansen was also in Killsadie. He was also in the Stereo.
Right. Yeah, we were kind of like ships in the night. Like I think BJ might have still been in Seattle when I was up there, but he had stopped playing with Killsadie, and that's kind of when I came in. And so I knew him from around, but yeah, we'd never really played together.
When you were in Killsadie, were they still doing the white short sleeve dress shirts?
No, unfortunately.
Damn.
I was really bummed that I missed out on that.
Yeah.
And I remember, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember seeing like in Heart Attack and like MRR, like these Killsadie ads and being like, oh, look at that. They're in like white shirts and skinny black ties. I'd probably be into that.
Yeah.
And then not at all what I expected or was thinking it might be, but
yeah, they look like they could have been a ska band, not a ska band.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a ska band.
When you moved to Seattle, did you have in your mind a type of music you wanted to play, or were you just pretty much open to anything as long as it was going to be something you can do full time?
I was super open. I was ready to just kind of see what would happen. And I had no like preconceived ideas of what kind of music that I'd be playing. It was kind of interesting going up to Seattle because the music scene was so different from what I had grown up with, basically, and especially at that time. So yeah, I just kind of kept myself open, which is kind of what I've done always, as far as my playing goes.
Now, Minus the Bear, you get signed by Suicide Squeeze.
Yeah.
Okay.
The best record label in the world.
Now, I read that the owner, Dave Dickenson, has a tattoo of your name on his body.
Oh, he does. He's a fantastic man. I really love him. And I have a tattoo of the Suicide Squeeze logo. And probably, now that you mention it, my next tattoo probably should be a David Dickenson tattoo, because I fully love that guy and really credit him to being, just instrumental in Minus the Bear's trajectory, and just his love and support, and just always being in our corner. He's a fantastic man.
Well, what's the story? Why your name specifically?
We love each other, man.
When you love somebody, you get the tattoo of their name.
That's right.
That's how it works, Aaron.
Yeah. Hint, hint.
When did the tattoo happen?
It was a few years ago. I mean, it still makes me blush because I was so taken aback, like I've only got 2 people out there with my name tattooed on them. And one of them is my sister. And one of them is David Dickenson. And he is my brother, man. Like, yeah.
Only 2.
Yeah, only 2 so far, Aaron.
Most people have like 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's not too late, Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron.
The very first tattoo I ever get in my whole life is
Cory Murchy. Yeah. You'll be in a very elite club, man. A lot of people have skulls. A lot of people have Sacred Hearts.
Yep.
Only 2 people have Cory Murchy.
Oh. What other tattoos do you have?
Oh, I got a bunch of dumb ones.
What's the dumbest? And do you have any ska tattoos?
I do. I have. I actually have a special beat tattoo that I got with. Do you know Josh Staples?
Yeah, from Velveteen.
That's
and,
right.
The New Trust.
Yep. So minus the Bear and the Velveteen and New Trust probably played more shows together than any other band.
Nice.
Like we are big Josh Staples and Sarah Sanger fans. So I think we were in Pomona playing the Glass House, and the New Trust was with us, and Josh and I were like, let's get tattoos. And he was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, totally. Let's get something. And we settled on the special beat. It's that like jet logo, the plane or whatever. So that's my only one right now, but there is definitely more in the future, I think.
Nice.
Did you see Special Beat live?
No, I didn't, man. In fact, I've seen the specials a couple times, but I never saw the beat or the special beat. And I can't believe that I've never seen the beat, because there were they're still on tour. They've been touring forever. And it's always been like, I've been on tour or something has come up that I just can't see them. So one of these days.
When I saw the Special Beat play in like the mid 90s, early mid 90s,
Mm-hmm.
This was in the Warfield in San Francisco. I was stalked by a very drunk skinhead who would just slow motion headbutt me. So
I'm sorry that you had that happen to you, but that sounds very classic, like skinhead ska show thing.
It was very unusual. It wasn't painful because it was slow motion. It was like a weird
slow
mind game.
motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Special Beat were good though.
Good. Minus the headbutting.
Yeah, the headbutting memory kind of has overshadowed the performance.
Yeah. Well, and that's the classic thing too, is like, especially going to ska shows in the 80s and 90s, like there was that, like, for me, there was that whole like kind of moment of fear, because you didn't know who was going to show up. Like in Albuquerque, there was, the two-tone and skinheads that liked ska and that were not racist, but the Rio Rancho skins, which were the Nazis, would show up to all the ska shows. And so you'd be on your guard and have to, like, in this weird way, like, defend your turf. And I just think back, like, going to shows, like it could be a traumatic event. It could be like the most beautiful, wonderful thing, along with being like totally sketched out and scary, but that was all part of it.
Do you ever get into an altercation?
Yes.
Okay, let's hear it.
It just happens, and you didn't want to be in that, but you'd all of a sudden be staring down a bonehead that was making a ruckus and you'd run him out.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, and that was just part of it,
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird how, like, you accept certain things like that. Like,
yep,
this is just a part of it.
Yep.
But then you don't accept it at the same time. Like you're saying, like, you run them out. So
yeah. You hold your ground and you say, no, not here. Not what you're doing. It's, fuck off. Nazi punks fuck off, literally, you know? I mean, that's that, but you lived that. Like, it wasn't just a cute saying. Like,
Right.
it was actually, you dealt with shit on the dance floor. And that's, you know, for me, like the ska and like the two-tone thing, like everyone always, you know, it's like, oh, ska, it's like this like circus, like hokey thing. Like, it's so goofy. Man, for me, like, it was political. It was, you know, standing up for your, you know, standing up for yourself, standing up for your brothers and sisters, and like, you know, call that cheesy, but like that shit was real. Like, you actually, it was like putting in action your, you know, your, what you believed in.
Yeah.
When shit like that would pop up, and it would pop up. And so for me, like, you know, and the message of, you know, ska and two-tone and even a lot of the third wave stuff was anti-racist and anti-fascist. And, you know, it wasn't just like pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
It was pick it up and do something and make a stand. So anyway, got off on a tangent there, but
good tangent.
It meant something, you know, and it was political, and it had a message, and I appreciated that. You know, it talked about you know, racial prejudice and disunity, and talked about creating unity and saying fuck that racial prejudice, you know, and it actually meant something. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. And I mean, from my experience too, going to the 90s ska shows, especially in the early to mid 90s, that message was fairly present amongst the bands that were even ska punk. And I also felt like a lot of the bands I sort of in retrospect get labeled goofy. Like, I always felt like it was more chaotic. It was more like Skank and Pickle, you know, that my sort of introductory band. Like, I didn't think goofy as much as like that was like crazy. Like,
yeah,
because
totally,
because that band and so many of the other bands, they just came from the Fishbone school of live music and how you approached it. And that was just about like anarchy on stage. And that's the thing that I, as a kid, I was like, that's why I loved it. I wasn't like that. It was such a funny show.
For sure. But it did carry a lightness and a sense of joy.
Yeah.
With all of that kind of serious, you know, political and you know, social stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I was definitely intimidated by like heavier type shows, and I didn't want to go to like metal shows or hardcore punk shows. I mean, that felt like didn't feel safe to me the way ska punk shows did.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, Skank and Pickle was a huge one. I mean, when I, you know, got turned on to them, it was like very early on. Like, they were one of the first, you know, along with Mealticket, like non-two-tone or, you know, old bands. Like, Skank and Pickle was definitely a touch point for me. And they hit all the right notes. God bless Mike Park.
God bless Mike Park. So Minus the Bear, Menos El Oso that's sort of like your album that really kind of gets kind of you're most known for, or really kind of you got to a point where you were really getting some attention. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I think trajectory wise, like, that was definitely a turning point for sure.
Yeah, I mean, half the songs I mentioned earlier from that record.
Yeah, totally.
I read that you had dedicated the album to your mom, who I guess had recently passed away when you guys made that record. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, yeah, she passed away from after a fight of breast cancer, and so it was probably maybe like 6-7 months before that record. I can't. To be honest, I get a little foggy with time regarding all that. But she passed away, and then maybe 3 months later, we did a tour in Spain that really kind of galvanized the title and kind of the whole theme of that record. So it was a tough one, because, I say goodbye to my mom at, I was 24 or 25. And then 3 months later I was on tour, and, in hindsight, probably, I probably should have taken a break, and dealt with some things, but I didn't, because I believed in the band so much, and it was everything that I had. And, the cover photo of that is on a beach in Spain. And I had walked down to the beach because I was dealing with grief, quite a bit. And, I remember taking that shot and kind of feeling like as far away from the band and from everything, from anything in my life as I was. Like that picture kind of said it all there. I was far away looking in. Dealt with some shit. So yeah, we dedicated to my mom, which I was happy that the guys were into doing that. I had found, as you will when you're going through things and kind of taking care of all that stuff, I'd found a note that she had scribbled and talked about how her favorite band was Minus the Bear. And it kind of just hit me in a way that she was so proud and so happy for me that I was doing what I wanted to do and what I set out to do. And she was, such a huge support, and my father is too. I don't want to, he deserves a lot of credit too. But yeah, so it I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of a story.
Yeah.
And I think, seeing that and kind of understanding the support that she gave me, it galvanized me to carry on and just to kind of go full steam ahead with the band, regardless of what my mental state was. And like I said, I maybe should have taken a break, but I didn't, because that wasn't an option as far as I was concerned. So
yeah, I imagine when you're 24, and your band is your life, and you're still thinking about, this is, we're getting somewhere, and this could go even further. Like it doesn't feel like you can stop.
Yeah.
Like,
nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just kind of keep going, for better or for worse.
Yeah. So the band breaks up in like 2018, right?
Yeah.
And so did you move back to Santa Fe right when the band broke up?
Pretty much. My wife and I always talked about moving to Santa Fe at some point, or New Mexico at some point. Didn't really know when that would happen, but as soon as it became clear that the band was, kind of on its way out, we started making plans to make our exit, and it was the best move we've ever done.
So you work now doing like watering crops and doing like farm stuff, right?
Yeah, I work at a living history museum here in Santa Fe, and it's a Spanish colonial site. I mean, the site goes back hundreds, if not 1,000 years of inhabitants. And I, in a weird way, fell in love with moving water and irrigation. And here in New Mexico, there's a kind of an old system of irrigating land through what we call acequias, which is I don't want to get too nerdy, but
get nerdy.
It's an old traditional. The Spaniards brought it over from the Iberian Peninsula, and they learned it from the Moors when the Caliphate ruled Spain. But it's a form of irrigation through man-made canals in order to bring water to arid areas. And during the colonial times, the Spanish brought the technology over, which also worked with the native technology, which had been in place for thousands of years as well, because they had to irrigate their fields as well. So it's this whole process of moving water from one place to another where you need it. I fell in love with it in a weird, random set of events and found myself at this living history museum. And I get to move water through an acequia that dates back to 1719 at least. And I grow hops and kind of wear a few different hats around here. But yeah, couldn't be more different than my previous life, and I couldn't be happier.
So you you kind of have a schedule now that's I want to say a little bit more routine oriented, a little more meditative than your old schedule, which was probably a whole lot of upheaval.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely been a learning curve, because I did spend so many years on the road and kind of, had a rhythm in the irregularities of band life, if you will, but there was still some sort of constant, like every fall we knew we were going to be on tour. Every spring we knew we were going to be on tour. But it was, like you said, it was more irregular than what I live now. So yeah, having kind of a rhythm of life is definitely nice. It's definitely been an adjustment and some learning curves, but I've definitely been happy with it.
You also paint now?
Yeah, I started painting kind of a few years before the band, officially called it quits. Just as I needed a release. I needed to be able to kind of express myself on my own terms and not by committee. So I started painting, and it was just a big release. And then, when I moved when we moved to New Mexico, I really had no idea what I was going to do. So once the pandemic hit, really had no idea what was going on. So I just threw myself into painting, and that, along with, funny enough, the Mighty Mighty Bosstones and Operation Ivy, saved my life through the pandemic. Because I'm sure you guys have similar experiences of the whole, when lockdown came, it was dark and dire times, like just a lot of uncertainty. The only thing that got me through those days was waking up and listening to the Mighty Mighty Bosstones or Operation Ivy. And it was like the positivity and pissed offness that I needed. And it was like full circle. Like, I kid you not. Like, it was like, thank God for those bands. I mean, among others, but those two, like, really kicked my ass. So
yeah, any day I'm having a bad day, I can put on the Operation Ivy album. Instantly fixes my bad mood.
Dude, it's so good. It's so good, and it still holds up so much. So yeah, huge. And I mean, and not to go off on a tangent, but I do have to thank Mighty Mighty Bosstones for teaching me how to interact with fans. I remember going to a Mighty Mighty Bosstones signing when Don't Know How to Party came out. And this is still in LA. I think went to some record shop in the Valley, and they did a meet and greet. And, we were all kids and just so excited to meet them. And like, they were so gracious and so nice, and like signed our promo, copies of whatever it was. And like, every time Minus the Bear had a meet and greet or, had fan interaction, like, I kid you not, I thought back to the Mighty Mighty Bosstones and how gracious they were, and what a impact it had on me, and what it meant for a band to treat their fans well. And I really carried that with me throughout the Minus the Bear experience. And like, if there's one thing that I miss about Minus the Bear, it's that fan interaction. Like, it was truly just so amazing and such a blessing to have like an incredible group of people that followed us for years. And like, you know, we'd have people come up to us and be like, oh, this is our 30th show. And you're like, Jesus, dude, like, is the 30th really? And you're like, yeah, man, I've got all the ticket stubs and like, I love it. And it meant so much, you know, like that really, for me, really kept me going with that band because of our fan base. And yeah, so shout out to Boston's and the crew for teaching me how to do it right.
Thank you so much for listening to In Defense of Ska. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you normally stream or download episodes. If you haven't already, grab a copy of my book In Defense of Ska, available at clashbooks.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. It's at In Defense of Ska. And please consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/In Defense of Ska. You will get monthly bonus episodes, extended interviews and commentary per episode, and access to the In Defense of Ska Discord. In Defense of Ska would not be possible without the great team that tirelessly works on it every week. So you should go check out their other projects as well. Co-host Adam Davis has an amazing band called Omnigon. Give them a follow on Instagram and Twitter. It's simply at Omnigon. And our editor, Chris Reeves, has a phenomenal record label and podcast called Ska Punk International. For more information, go to skapunkinternational.com. And if you've ever enjoyed one of the highly specific In Defense of Ska memes floating around the interwebs, it was likely the work of The Bands I Like Only Charge $18. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. On that note, we leave you by saying, Ska now more than ever.
They're a ska band.
Yeah, they're a ska band.
Or at least there's ska elements hidden in their music.
Yeah,
Maybe
like,
you didn't know about that before.
Like an Easter egg hunt. So
Gotta find it. Find the ska.
Yeah, we gave you some hints to find these ska Easter eggs.
There's also a challenge out there. Record Minus the Bear song as a ska song.
Yes.
So do it.
You
got a band? You want to get on somebody's radar? Do it up.
We brought Cory on, and then we took him behind the curtain after we were done talking to him. And we talked a little bit more to him. We talked to him about his artwork. He's a great artist.
Go check out his paintings.
Yeah.
There's a link in the show notes.
He's more than just a ska bass player. He's also a ska artist. So $5. $5. You can hear all about his artwork and his thoughts.
We say it every week, but we really just want you to be able to enjoy all this extra content. And it's over there for $5.
We're trying to help you.
Right. Look, we take the time to record these bits after the episode. The least you can do is open your wallet, pull out 5 crisp $1 bills, and shove them into the computer.
Please
do it.
Now, come back next week as well. We brought on the actor, John Ross Bowie.
Big Bang Theory.
Ska fan.